I hope everybody's having a wonderful morning. If you're in Eastern Ontario, or probably in a lot of Ontario, it is super hot, incredible for the May long weekend. I have camped on the May long weekend where we didn't have to put the beer in the cooler because it was oh so cold the whole weekend. So this is incredible. Unfortunately, I don't think we're allowed to go camping yet, but you work with what you have. At least it's a great weekend for gardening, which most people do this long weekend. Okay, so trying something new today, which I like to do to keep life exciting. Hopefully it'll work for us. I'm going to share some videos while we do our talk. Um, okay, so let me start at the beginning. I'm very excited today to do our first draw, and we're going to give out some swag. So I forgot to grab it. 2 seconds. We got these cute little cooler bags that I'm going to you give out. Look at that. Aren't they adorable? And inside there is a little collapsible water bucket, a little bait bag with the Shake-a-Paw logo, and some lovely supplement samples from the Omega Alpha people I love their products and love to use their stuff. Okay, so I'm going to start the day by doing a draw of everybody who wrote love dogs in the comments. And I won't look, I'll stir it around. And Tracy Allen won. Tracy, I will get this to you. Thank you so much, everybody, for playing. Now, the other draw I was doing for swag was for everybody who sent in pictures of sit. I love the pictures so much that I'm going to give a little swag bag to everybody who posted pictures. And I'm going to show you 3 of my favorite pictures because I love the fact that people took the effort and took the time to put their dogs somewhere in a sit and worked on it. Okay, so this is where I'm going to attempt something new. I'm going to attempt to screen share. Now, I was practicing before I started to make sure it would work. Now, let me see if it will let me do it once I've already started. And it won't. Isn't that awesome? So I guess I have to screen share before I start, or it won't let me do it once I've started. So I will post the pictures in the comments for you to see them. And we'll go from there. And I guess I won't be posting videos either. I will post those little video clips in the comments and make sure you guys get to see those, and I'll do my best to explain them as best I can. Don't worry, I will figure this out and get you video during these Facebook Lives eventually. Okay, let me make sure I can see comments so that I see you guys posting and saying hello and make sure I answer your questions. The other thing I wanted to say is make sure to sign into Canine Essentials with Paula Hoger page if you want me to see your comments. I will check all the other comments after the live, but if you want me to answer them during the live, make sure I see it through the Canine Essentials page. So say hello, tell me where you're from, all that wonderful stuff. Hello, Dorothy. How is the lovely Billy this morning? There we are. Always fun how you try new stuff, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, just like dog training. Okay, as always, please feel free to ask questions in the comments. I will answer throughout the live, and like I said, make sure you're signed into this live through the Canine Essentials Facebook page. Yeah, we're all hot, Dorothy. Because it just feels, I got air conditioning last year after many years of not having it because it seems to be getting hotter lately in the last few years. And it gets to the point where my computer doesn't work right because it's just too hot. But now I'm like, it's May 20th. Should I be turning the air conditioning on? That feels so wrong. But at the same time, we're doing the shut all the windows up during the day and open all the windows at night and turn on the fans and not comfortable because everybody's too hot. I'm like, I don't know, we might turn it on. Anyways, if you are listening to the recording, let me know by using hashtag replay in the comments section, and then go ahead and ask questions, but that way I know I haven't answered them through the live. And like I said, for those of you on the call, say hello. I love to hear from you. Our subject today is choice versus no choice in dog training. And this has been a super hard live for me to write because I really want to give you this information, but I want to make sure you understand what I'm meaning to say and not misunderstand me because it's a delicate subject. And we all have a tendency to either go one way or another in this, be super nice and accommodating, or the other way and be like, you need to do this now. And like everything else, you need to find a balance for you and your dog. I want to get across that as much as your dog has to understand that sometimes there is no choice, this concept needs to be trained in everyday life so that when you need it, your dog does not freak out. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of people be super accommodating with their dogs, but because they're super accommodating, the dog's not understanding that concept of no choice. And unfortunately, real life is sooner or later, your dog is going to have a no choice moment. And when they have a no choice moment, they need to be able to go, oh, this is a no choice moment. I need to go with it. I need to go with the flow. I also want to encourage you to do the training so these no choice moments are rare and painless. Good morning, Barb. Like nail cutting. I can force my dog to get his nails cut, and I've done it before. Groomers have to do it all the time. And you can get it done, and you may be able to get a dog who eventually puts up with it. But if you spend the time and do the training, you have a dog who doesn't just put up with it, but actually enjoys it. We have a little routine with Wicca. I go sit on the couch. She gets on the ottoman. I pull out my little container of cookies, and she basically goes, here you go, do my feet. She's by far the best trained dog I've ever had at doing nails, and I am so happy because it's not a battle in any way, shape, or form. Where my 11-year-old lets me do it, but he doesn't enjoy it. You can tell he's like, are we done? Are we done? Are we done? And it's a stressful thing. So I'm really glad I spent the time with her and taught her. Could I do it with my 11-year-old now? Yes, but there's a lot of history, a lot of not trusting me because I've made him do it. So it's, of course, like anything else, easier to do when they're babies. This is not a live that says force your dog to do everything you want, and that is the best way to train. I want to say that over and over during this live. This is not what I'm saying, but I also want you to understand that real life is sometimes there are no choice moments, and you want your dog prepared for those so he can handle them. I have vet tech friends who tell me horror stories of having to restrain dogs to get their nails cut, to get vaccinated, to get blood pulls. You know what? If you go into the vet with a dog who's impossible to hold, who's dangerous, even muzzled, the vets just can't do as good a job. They can't check them as well as you'd like. My dogs get regularly adjusted by the chiropractor. That wouldn't happen. So that means an injury wouldn't get solved because the vet couldn't handle my dog. This is really important to my life with my dogs. So getting them used to being handled is super important, but at the same time, you know what? Sometimes when they're being adjusted, it hurts. And anybody who's ever been adjusted by a chiropractor can attest to that. But you know, when you're adjusted, it's going to hurt sometimes. And that's just the way it is. And I want my dogs to understand I'm going to make this as painless as possible. But if it hurts, I also need you to not lose your mind. And if I need to muzzle them, muzzle training, it's definitely on my list for Wicca. I've never done it before, but I think it's something that needs to be done for those situations where it's safer for everybody if the dog is muzzled. I've seen it myself when I've taken a dog's collar or seen a client try to move their dog and the dog loses their mind when they don't get to go the way they think they should get to go and turns around and tries to bite them. But this live is about too much freedom to choose. That's basically it. As much as I want to give them choice, I also want them to understand no choice. And I'm going to keep saying this. Watching my clients' videos, I see many situations where the owners are giving the dog too many choices, being too accommodating, meaning never doing anything that the dog doesn't want to do, teaches the dog that there's always options. And like I've said, unfortunately, that's not just not true. Sometimes giving the dog too many options gives them too many questions, and they're not sure how to answer those questions. A no choice moment is exactly that, a moment of no options where the dog has to do something you want. My goal is to train the dog that understands how to make the correct choice. Even giving the dog too many choices means the dog is going to pick wrong too often and learn what we didn't intend them to learn, such as being held is scary and I'm going to fight tooth and nail and you if you try. Or being pulled away from something makes me lose my mind and I'm going to redirect and bite. Those are dogs that don't understand no choice moments. This causes a lot of frustration for both the dog and the handler. And let's face it, these are dogs with great big teeth, especially the bigger dogs, so it's also super dangerous. The collar game is pivotal. It is the beginning of no choice. But at the same time, it starts with choice. A dog who is comfortable being grabbed by the collar and held will be a dog who can be moved by the collar or restrained by the collar, leading a dog to a dog who understands no choice moments. I start the collar grab game by not just rewarding the dog for allowing me to take his collar. So most training is you grab the dog's collar and give them a cookie. I want you grab the dog's collar and place the cookie, so position of reinforcement, so that the dog has to move towards you to get it. Because then what I'm actually training is when I go to grab your collar, you move towards me. When I used to teach collar grabs the other way, remember I've taught for over 20 years, so there's been a lot of dogs. I used to get about 25% of dogs who never got better, and some actually got steadily worse. And the reason was when the owner went to grab their collar, the dog did this, and the owner rewarded that backing up behavior. And the moving towards you is the opposite of the backing up, giving you a dog that when you reach for their collar, they move towards you. Some dogs really hate this, and you really have to work on it. And sometimes you have to make some modifications to make it work better. But this is something that is super important. You have to keep working on. While this may seem subtle, a dog that I hear people all the time, oh, my dog's fine at collar grabs. Yeah, I grab his collar all the time. But if you really watch carefully, every time you grab, they're like, oh, don't do that. Oh, don't do that. The problem is that behavior gets worse because you end up having to chase them. And now when you chase them, they move further back. And now you created a dog who feels every time you reach for him, he should back away, which is keep away. So now you have a dog who's comfortable, who's not just happy about having their collar grab, but confidently moves towards you when you reach for them. We want our dogs to work with us, not against us. No choice moments should always lead the dog to, no choice moments should almost always lead to the dog freely making the choice to engage in the activity we want them to. Meaning, and I'll give you more examples, but if I take your collar and move you, I want you to go, oh, I have to walk, not go, oh, you're going to take my collar and put pressure, and now I'm going to go, I'm not moving. The next step is adding some challenges. One is time or duration. For some weird reason, when you hold a dog's collar and do nothing, they're good for about 15 to 20 seconds, and then they start to go, why are you still holding my collar? And this escalates if you're in a situation like there's dogs playing in front of them and they want to go play, or they want to go run in the backyard or go swimming, whatever it is your dog does with you that it really enjoys. Duration of collar grab can be challenging for a lot of dogs, but is also the first step in your dog being comfortable being restrained. This is where you as the owner need to be aware of how the choices you are making in everyday life are affecting your dog's reactions. If you grab your dog's collar and the minute he starts to fuss or squirm, you let go, you are teaching him that the fussing makes you let go. For example, you go to the off-leash park. You hold your dog's collar while you take the leash off. Your dog sees other dogs at the park and he really wants to go play. Now he is bouncing and barking, and you let go of the collar because in your brain, you got him in the park, you unclip the leash, you're going to let him go because why not? But you just reinforced the exact behavior you're trying to fix. Remember the slippery slope. You might not realize that you are training your dog to be potentially leash reactive, but from the dog's perspective, you're practicing when I see a dog, I bark and lunge and get to go play. Instead, you want to hold them until they settle down and then give them the cue go play before you let them go, teaching the dog how to calm himself down in the face of distractions. Dog who understands how to be restrained in exciting environments. A dog who understands not to panic and swing around and redirect a bite. So you see how many powerful lessons you are teaching by just holding your dog for 2 seconds before you let him go. And at first, especially if there's a history of letting them go, it might be 10 minutes. I got a rescue dog when I used to go to Bruce Pitt all the time, and I would do this not in the park, but just outside the park, more in the parking lot. I knew as soon as I let go, he'd go in the gate, but I also didn't want dogs in his face while we were just working on him being calm before I let go of the collar. So set it up in situations where you have the room for him to make the choice. But here's how I train this. I start training this with the get it game. At home, calm and quiet, your dog understands collar grab, right? Because we've already taught it at the beginning. You take your dog by the collar and throw a cookie out in front. Wait until your dog is calm. That means 4 paws on the ground and quiet. Now give the get it cue and release. The get it game has lots of benefits, as I've discussed in other lives. In this example, we are working towards a dog understanding and being comfortable being restrained. Once the dog is comfortable with being restrained by the collar, start working on hugging him. So you're holding his collar, he settles down, you say get it. Now, can you put your arms around him? And wait till he settles down and then say, get it. Now, maybe lift up his front end. So put your arms under, one across the chest and one under behind his legs, and lift him slightly off the ground. And then when he's calm, put him down and let him go play. This is creating a dog who is comfortable being restrained, even in the face of something he wants. Ask your vet ask your vet to show you what holds they need for your dog to be able to do different procedures, and then work on those. Like for getting blood out of a jugular, you have the dog sitting, you put your knees in his back, and then you lift up his chin so that they have access to the neck. So you could practice, okay, I'm going to hold you like that. And when he's calm, you feel him relax into that. Okay, get it. You could work this every day for his dinner and start building slowly but steadily the concept of being restrained. I will play all the above games, the get it games and all that stuff, with a puppy or small dog, but I am also going to never hold their collar for duration. And so in real life, because this isn't practical or good for my back. So with puppies and small dogs, I do the same type of games, but I practice them holding them in my arms. I want them to be comfortable being restrained in my arms, even when they don't want to be. Starting with this simple rule: never put your dog down for squirming or fussing. Like in the above, letting go of the dog at the off-leash park, it is so easy to forget this rule. Like you carry them into the house and put them down as soon as you walk in the door, but you didn't even realize they're all squirming and jumping out of your arms. But you're at home and you're thinking about the next thing you have to do and not thinking about the dog in your arms. Instead, waiting for the dog to be calm, and that means lying still in my arms, not fighting, before you start to bend. As they get good at this, then I start to bend, but if they start to fuss, I stand back up. Wait till they're calm, start to bend. Especially with a dog, with a puppy, this happens really quick and they get the concept. But with a dog who's got a history of being released, my goal is a different level of bend before I let go. So let's say your dog starts to fuss, I don't know, when you're half bent. So you work on, okay, I'm going to wait till you're half bent, you're calm, I'm going to let you go. But then a couple of days later, when this gets easy, I'm going to go to 3/4 bend. My goal is to place my dog on the ground, meaning he is calm till his feet are on the ground. The reason for this is a couple. I've seen dogs squirming in people's arms and all of a sudden they fly out because they're like, I want to get down, I want to get down, I want to get down. They're little, you can't squish them too hard, and they jump out of your arms. Super dangerous. I've had clients whose dogs have broken legs. When I'm holding a small dog, unless I know him really well and I know he's not even going to try, my finger is always hooked in his collar. So if he does get out of my arms, I still have the collar and then I tuck him back up. Very quickly they learn getting out of my arms means be calm. This is teaching restraint. So again, it's little things you can do in everyday life to start getting your dog ready for those no choice moments. Teaching restraint this way creates a dog who is comfortable being held, something you practice multiple times a day with no effort and huge rewards. This means all vet procedures or grooming will be easier on the dog and therefore on you because it's less traumatic. I am so sad, especially now with COVID and a lot of people not being able to go into the vet, how traumatized the dogs are. They don't want to go in. The owners are stressed out because they don't know what their dogs are going to do. That's it. Once your dog is comfortable with you, get friends and family to restrain them before doing the get it game. Get them comfortable with anybody can hold you and you still have to be calm. The other part of the collar grab is movement. That means I want to be able to take my dog's collar or leash and direct them where I want them to go. To teach this, start in a quiet, non-distracting environment. How you want to teach everything. Make sure your dog's collar is on relatively tight. Collars are designed for the dog to pull. They are easy for the dog to get off if they back up and drop their head. If you have the collar on tight, the dog never understands this is a possibility and eventually will never try. If your dog has already figured this out, when you grab the dog by the collar, instead of grabbing on the back of their neck, grab them under the chin, because when they pull back and tuck, the collar's here and it can't slip off. That way, now take your dog's collar and put pressure forward. So you're going to move them towards you so they have to step. When you feel your dog move with the pressure, reward. Place the reward ahead of where your dog is so that he has to keep moving forward to get the cookie. The reward placement will continue to encourage forward motion. Do not use food to get your dog moving. What that means is if you put pressure on the collar and your dog balks and backs up, if you pull out food, the sight of the food is rewarding the choice of backing up and will actually strengthen that behavior. I work with you see it a lot with puppies, especially smaller puppies. And I'm curious to see if it's because they are allowed to get away with it more. So the person's walking down the street, the dog does this, and what does the person do? Turns around, come on, puppy, come on, look, I have cookies, come on, puppy, come on. And this behavior gets worse and worse and worse every day. And that's because every time the dog puts pressure on the leash, you pay attention, you give them all the encouragement they want. If instead, when they put pressure on the leash, you just keep that pressure there, and again, don't do this anywhere. You don't want to add fear to this equation. So if they're a little worried on the road, I'd be doing this in my kitchen and making sure they understood pressure on the leash means move towards me. I wouldn't be doing it on the road. Do not drag your dog. You may have to find a non-slippery floor such as grass or carpet if your dog is sliding too easily. Keep the pressure on. Be patient. The dog will move. We are so quick to go, oh, the dog doesn't like it, I'm going to let go. No, give them a minute. I've done this with hundreds of dogs. They've all moved. The stronger the behavior is, because it's been practiced, the longer it takes them to move. With puppies, it's usually like 5 seconds. They're like, no. And then they're like, oh, okay. And then you reward them. And after 3 times, they're like, oh, when you put pressure, I move. That's just how it goes. You can do this by holding their collar or by doing it on a leash. I work it both ways with my dogs. Some dogs, especially baby puppies who've never felt leash pressure, may buck and panic again for like 5 seconds where they're like, ah, and then they're like, oh, I'm not dying. Oh, it's okay. I can move. Any movement you reward, you reward any movement. That means if they move a paw forward, I'll reward them. Remember reward placement. Put it in front. So now they're going to move 2 paws forward to get that cookie. Usually within a few reps, the dogs start to get it and will move as soon as he feels leash pressure. Another situation, this is another situation where giving them too many choices, like relaxing and using food, relaxing the collar every time they pull, starts to put them into, I don't know what you want, which gets us frustrated, which creates this behavior gets worse and worse and worse. This is a game that I only play until the dog consistently gets it. And then I never play it again. Once my dog understands pressure on leash means move towards me or move towards the pressure, I never play this game again, because otherwise I would end up, to release the pressure, they have to put the pressure. So if you kept playing the game, they would go, I tighten the leash to loosen the leash, and then you reward me. I know this because I've done it. Now that you've set a good foundation between duration and motion on a collar or leash, you can start adding some challenges. Set up the get it game I mentioned above. Let the dog do 1 or 2 get its where he gets the cookie in the bowl. On the next repetition, instead of saying get it, take your dog's collar. You should already be holding it for the get it game. And instead of saying get it, walk away. Turn and walk away. Reward your dog when he chooses to walk away with you. So at first he's going to be like, but my cookie's over there. And then eventually he's going to go, okay, I have no choice. You're leaving. I have to go because you're pulling me. And the minute he makes that choice to go with you, good boy. You could even then turn around and say, reward him, and then turn around and say, get it, and let him go to the cookie in the bowl. This is more real life. Your dog understanding that sometimes he doesn't get what he wants or expects to get. Let's say you're out on a walk and someone dropped a sandwich. It's gross and moldy, and of course you don't want your dog to eat that. So you turn the other direction. So you see the sandwich, you take your dog by the collar, and you either walk around it or turn away from it. Because of this behavior, because of the get it game and walking away from the get it game, your dog's like, oh, okay, I keep walking. You reward him for walking by it. And now he starts going, I see a sandwich, I walk by it, I get rewarded. Instead, what I see is the dog sees a sandwich and you start to battle. You pull on the leash, you reel up on the leash, he fights even harder. And now he starts to scan, looking for the sandwich, because he gets rewarded by getting to eat the sandwich. And that battle you're doing to not let him get the sandwich is, for whatever reason, rewarding. Because if it wasn't rewarding, dogs wouldn't get worse. It's like you're proofing getting the sandwich. You're making it harder, therefore he works harder. So now you've changed this behavior with the get it game. As soon as you see the sandwich, and you usually see it before the dog, but the problem is, if the minute you see it, you start to pull back and go, no, leave it. He goes, oh, there must be something here. You just take him by the collar, and he's like, oh, she's got me by the collar. I have to walk with her. Take him by the collar, walk around, reward. Awesome. This no choice moment quickly becomes what your dog chooses over and over. The fuss he makes will diminish, and the stress will get less for both of you. The ability to move where directed is a valuable skill. Here are a couple of examples. All my dogs are crate trained. Most, if not all, of my dogs have at some point decided they didn't want to go in the crate. Usually this happens at agility, when they would rather be out and keep working than be put away. I see this happen regularly, I see this happen regularly with clients too, at agility, or when they have to go to work, or whenever the dog decides he no longer wants to be crated. Crating is not an optional behavior. How you respond to this behavior is one more piece in teaching your dog to accept no choice moments. Every day when you get ready for work, the dog is getting harder and harder to get into the crate. He hesitates. You are having to go get him, and now you are trying to bribe him with cookies, creating all sorts of unwanted associations going into the crate when you go to work, making mornings even more of a pain in the butt than they already are. Instead, I want you to use management and collar pressure to explain the no choice to the dog. Most people take their dog out for one last pee right before they leave. Take them out on a leash, and when you go into the house, get your treats ready in your hand. If your dog is going to be in the crate a while, a long-lasting treat like a frozen Kong is even better. Walk straight to the crate, take the leash off, and using collar pressure, put your dog in the crate. As soon as you feel the dog stop backing up, so at first you're going to put pressure and he's going to back up. As soon as you feel him relax, toss the treats into the crate. If you're using a plastic crate, I toss the treats so they hit the back wall of the crate. If you are using a wire crate, toss them, put them in through the top at the back, just because if you throw them to the back, they fly up. This is using reward position to encourage the next behavior, meaning your dog is going to start moving to the back of the crate when you play this game, because that's where the treats are going to be. Keep this management up until you feel your dog moving towards the crate when you approach. So you have his collar, you're moving towards the crate, and you feel him start to pull forward instead of starting to pull back. This is another good example of how taking away choices and explaining to your dog that the crate is not an option makes life so much easier for both of you. I've seen so many clients standing outside their crate having a 5-minute discussion with various cues and treats, trying to get their dogs into the crate. Always remember, repeating cues over and over is not what you want to do. And even worse, starting to give new cues, like when your dog doesn't come and you start going, come on, or slapping your leg or making kissing noises. This is telling you the cue's not working. When you're starting to add cues, that means you have no faith in your initial cue. If I say come and my dog doesn't come and I make kissing noises and my dog comes, that's telling me come's not working. So you have to be aware of that, because stop using it or retrain it. Adding new cues will not make it work. Training will. When a cue is not working, that means something needs to change because the dog doesn't understand. Always remember, he is not being bad or stubborn. If the dog doesn't want to, that is just giving you information that you haven't built enough value for the appropriate behavior, or the dog has too many questions. I see this, funny enough. So with the crate, there's a lot of emotion attached to the crate because a lot of people feel bad putting their dogs in a crate. But I see the exact same behavior with the tunnel and agility. The dogs are fine doing the tunnel, but as soon as you ask them to do the tunnel, they're like, no. And I can't figure out why, but I've seen it happen enough. I know it's true. I think that's it. We get to the tunnel and we're talking to them, so they're looking at us, but that means they don't see the tunnel because they're focused on us. And the more we talk to them and get frustrated and put social pressure, the more they're like, this area is yucky and I'm just not going to come near it. Where if instead, and these are dogs who are comfortable doing the tunnel. This is not a brand new puppy who's never seen a tunnel. If instead they take the dog by the collar and walk towards the tunnel and say nothing, the dog goes, oh, look, there's a tunnel. I go through that, I get cookies. And it gets fixed much quicker. Okay, so for an example, Wicca's crate behavior at the agility field started to deteriorate. Like I said, this happens to all my dogs. I don't even stress about it. But I did find I was having to repeat the cue, and she was getting slower and hesitating and looking around. I started with building value. Every training session, one of our training blocks was working getting in and out of the crate. So she'd go in, I'd say break, she'd run out, we'd have a little tug, she'd go in, I'd say break, she'd run out, we'd have a little tug. I also started creating the choice of going into the crate easier for her by not telling her to crate from far away, where she had to make the choice for 10 feet, but instead waiting till I was at the bumper where she had to make the choice from 6 inches, not 10 feet. Within a week or so, her crate skills were back up to par. And yeah, this happens with all my dogs. A house crate with some of them, but usually their house crate's fine, but the car crates, it happens. I want to point something out. In the examples above, there's no real talking. This is super important. So listen, when you try to convince your dog to do a behavior, you end up reinforcing not doing the behavior. Let me say this another way. Attention is a reward. For example, giving multiple cues or trying to use food to get them to do it. Let me use the example of you are walking on leash and your dog reacts to something, becoming focused, possibly lunging or barking. The bird, a dog across the street, whatever. The appropriate response is to walk away by using leash pressure. Put your hand on your body, turn and walk away. Or by taking the collar, turning and walking away. The reason for your hand on your body is when your hand is off your body and you go to walk away, you tend to give your dog leash. So you're leaving, but your leash is not changing. When your hand's on your body and you walk away, the leash will tighten on the dog. And the only way for the dog to release that pressure is to move with you, which is exactly the game I taught with leash pressure. And your moving away becomes the cue for the leash pressure, which becomes the cue to turn away. So it all starts to build together. What I see instead is clients trying to convince their dogs to let go of the distraction. Leave it, come, no. possibly adding some leash pups. Come on. All this makes the dog focus harder on the distraction and lets the dog think that reacting is optional. When you walk away, you are not allowing them to continue to be reinforced by the distraction because the sight is gone. I say nothing because if the dog is that focused, his ability to hear me and if you have spent the time building the leash and collar foundations I mentioned above, then this is very likely that when you put your dog in your hands, when you put your hand in your dog's collar, that might be all he needs. As soon as you put your hand in the collar, he's like, wait, I understand. I need to calm down. Because the touching of them once they're comfortable with the collar, this is very important. When they're not comfortable with the collar for some reason, leash pressure or collar grab makes them escalate, makes them fully fall out of their body. But when they're comfortable, it brings their brain back into their body. And then this gives you the opportunity to possibly reinforce watching the distraction calmly. And this is very much the steps I use in my reactive dog program to start getting dogs to learn how to handle real world distractions. Last thing I want to talk about with choice versus no choice. If you are going to give your dog no choice about something, don't pretend there is a choice and try to convince them. Back to what I was saying, talking, convincing, giving cues. For those who aren't from Eastern Ontario, in 1998, we had a devastating ice storm. It was bad. We were without power for 21 days. Personally, there was people without power for a lot longer than that. It was very stressful for the humans and also for the dogs. I only had one dog. I only had one dog at the time, thank God. It would have been harder with multiple dogs. There was no way to let them off leash. The forest was just too dangerous with trees constantly breaking and dumping huge amounts of ice. The ground was glare ice everywhere. Getting them, I just remember my Akita, the poor boy, it was hard to get him to poop because I had him on a flexi because I couldn't let him go. It was just too dangerous. And this is when I still used flexis. And he'd get all set up. He'd get all ready and he'd squat and he was all ready. And then he'd start to slide. And the poor guy. And then you'd have to start all over again. It took hours. And it was dangerous. It was icy. For half of those days, we were very lucky. Our neighbors actually got power after like 10 or 11 days because the power line broke in front of our house. So we got their generator. A generator meant we could flush the toilet, shower, little things you don't appreciate enough till you can't do them for a week. We were luckier than most because we had a wood stove throughout the whole thing. Well, we always had a wood stove and we heated with wood. So we had a lot of wood. Before the generator, for water and flushing the toilet, we'd collect icicles because it was an ice storm. So there's piles of icicles on the roof because snow you can scoop, but glare ice you can't grab, right? But the icicles were great. We'd melt the icicles in a bucket and that's how we flushed the toilet. And then we'd boil that water for cooking and drinking. Yeah, I don't even think we had bottled water. Anyways, the reason I'm telling you this story, to get in and out of the house, to get in and out of the house, we had to walk through the garage by the generator. Because of the ice, this was the only way in and out of the house. This was not optional. This was it. At first, my Yukon, my 90-pound Akita, was hesitant. He didn't love the big noisy thing in the garage. I calmly took him by the collar and walked him by. If he had chosen to panic and try to get away, that would have made regular trips to use the bathroom super hard in an already really trying time. I did not have the mental capacity to train my dog. I just needed him to get in and out of the house. The rest of the time was spent trying to find food to eat, all the stuff you need to deal with. He understood that when I took his collar, he had to go where I took him. I did not try to cajole him or lure him with cookies. I was just like, buddy, we're going. I took him by the collar and walked. Within a few days, he was fine and walked right by the generator. And then it wasn't even a problem. I just held his leash and we walked on by. This was due to a lot of stuff. Games like the Get It game and the walking by. So he was very comfortable with that. Socializing. I expose my dogs to a lot of things. Whenever I see things they're scared of, if at all possible, I make a point of helping them overcome this fear. I think that I talk about more about that in my socializing Facebook Live. So I'm constantly working on them overcoming a fear. Every time you see your dog scared of anything, your goal is to help him overcome it, because when he learns to overcome fears, he's going to overcome the next fear that much easier and the next fear that much easier. So even if you have a worried dog, you're building confidence. Let me end with this. No matter how much work or socializing you do, there will be situations where you have to give your dog no choice. That's just real life. That's the way it is. It happens with us humans too, with our children, our spouses, at work, and in our day-to-day lives. You can help your dog get through these moments and make them non-events, making them nothing to get worried or anxious about, just a part of regular life. Not, oh, I made you do this and now you're going to hate me for 3 weeks. The more you the more you build the understanding of sometimes you have to do the easier these moments. The more you build the understanding of these no choice moments, the easier they become for your dog. With a puppy, yeah, I've had my puppies panic when I'm like, this is what we have to do. But with my adult dogs, they're like, okay, we'll do it. They're not happy about it sometimes. And I mean, these things might happen once a year. Like, it's not like every day I'm giving them no choice moments. They're limited. They're minor. This isn't something, this is the big thing. I'm not telling you force your dog to do everything every day. I'm saying I want them ready for when you have to. If you need help with this stuff, please reach out either to me or to another trainer, to a positive trainer. Our work together would start with first getting a detailed history of you and your dog. What's worked in the past, what hasn't worked. What are you working on? What are your problems? What are your issues? Then together we will assess your goals, talk about the problems you may face, and create a plan to get you back on track. These plans are the cornerstones of my programs. No two plans are alike because training is not a black and white thing. And the things with the plans, I create a plan, you try it, and the plan takes into consideration you, your dog, your family, what you want. So the plan is designed to work for you, but there's no such thing as 100% every time. But then if you come back to me and say, this isn't working, either because you're not doing it because it just doesn't work for you, or your dog's not getting it, that's perfectly fine. Then we edit the plan and continue to move pieces around till your dog goes, oh, I get it. And then you move forward. So that's how the plans work. Raising a dog is a journey. If you want it, I'm here to support you along the way. Just send me a message here on Facebook, visit canineessentials.ca, or you can send me an email at info@dogtraining.ca, and let's see how we can get you and your dog communicating together as a team. One more comment. Julie, great comprehensive video. Paula, I can listen and learn something new from you every time. Julie, thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for saying that. I am so glad I can provide that for you. Okay, guys, I will hang around for a few minutes and answer any questions that come up on the comments. Otherwise, have a wonderful, well, at least for us Canadians, have a wonderful long weekend. And we will see you next week, next Friday at 10 a.m. I have another great live planned for you. Bye, guys. Have a great weekend.